Thank you very much, Chrissy, and thanks to Vertical Events and the event sponsors for giving us the opportunity to have a chat to you today about Technology Metals and our GABANINTHA Vanadium project up in the Midwest of Western Australia, as Chrissy says, behind Mark's wall, and our ambition, our drive to be the next primary vanadium producer in the world. So I guess straight off the bat, why invest in Technology Metals? We do have a bunch of strategic commodities within our portfolio, within our projects, all located in this fantastic Tier 1 jurisdiction where we can get things done. The GABANINTHA Vanadium project, we've completed a feasibility study on GABANINTHA, large, long life, low cost, all the fantastic metrics you want to look at. I guess the lowest cost quartile, those sort of things that really make a project really want to get developed. We've been very successful in engaging with the market. We've got over 75% of our annual average production in some form of offtake, with a whole bunch in binding offtake into the steel industry. But importantly for what we're talking about here as well is we've also got some really good engagement in the battery industry, which we'll get onto. But what we've also discovered over the last year through I guess COVID and some quiet times was we identified within our portfolio, I guess down the road from GABANINTHA, within the same mineralisation unit, a satellite deposit called YARRABUBBA. And YARRABUBBA is a high-grade magnetite vanadium project that we're progressing along as a starter project. So it's a stage 1 to development of GABANINTHA. So it's enabling us to step through the capital development of GABANINTHA, and that's a really key part of what our plans are moving forward. Very much part of the future energy solution, very much part of moving to net zero 2050. Vanadium is going to play a very, very key role in that as we progress through. Just quickly on the corporate overview, we've been listed for now coming up to 5 years almost, still only 150 million shares on issue, so we've been keeping everything pretty tight as we've progressed through our projects. Started at GABANINTHA as effectively a brownfields project with 4 RC holes in it, and we've taken it through, as I said, all the way through resource reserve to definitive feasibility study, and now progressing YARRABUBBA through the same. So we've been pretty tight on our capital, making sure we make every dollar work for us. Currently sitting at about a 64 million market cap and just a touch over 5 million at bank at the end of June. We had a reasonably good run of late with our share price, and that's linked partly obviously to what we're doing from a project development point of view, and also a little bit more of resurgence in the vanadium market and the interest in there. Board and management team, fairly diverse skill sets across finance, commercial, technical, and we've got Michael Burke, who's out at our booth, or maybe at the back there, but we'll be at our booth later on, who's our project director looking at driving the development of our YARRABUBBA project in the first instance. So vanadium, what's it all about? Why is it a critical mineral? Why is it going to be supporting net zero? Used in steel, mainly used in steel. 90% of consumption goes into steel. The more vanadium you use in steel, the less steel you need for that application. So therefore, you can reduce emissions. So as Eddie talked about it in the opening address about the desire for high-grade magnetites, reducing emissions in steel making, this has got the same sort of application. You can use less steel for the same application, and therefore reduce those emissions. So really key on that steel side of things. But what we're seeing is the big growth is in vanadium redox flow batteries, and I'll get into a bit more on that shortly. But that's going to be, I guess, as we say, that's the future in vanadium. That's where we see a lot of growth coming in really now in the short term. A couple of years ago I was saying medium term, but it's happening now. Fantastic, I guess, stationary storage solution for renewable energy. So we've been talking about EVs, we've been talking about mobile solutions, lithium batteries. Vanadium batteries aren't competing with that. These are large-scale stationary storage solutions that are going to be linked and as I say, to these large-scale renewable energy sources. I think coming out of COVID, we're seeing obviously clearly a big push towards more and more use of renewables. We're seeing a lot of stimulus spending, so we're seeing more construction. So vanadium is really having its time in the sun. Not sure how clear that graph there is of the vanadium price, but the vanadium price has increased 100% over the last 6 to 9 months. And again, going back to Eddie's slide at the start of the conference, it was right up there at the top of the list as one of the better performing commodities, and clearly we see a lot left to go. A bit about the batteries, a lot of detail in this slide, and you know, you're welcome to come to the booth afterwards and have a bit more of a chat about these batteries, but some of the real key takeaways: you don't get any degradation in these batteries. These batteries will last for 20 years, and whatever charge you've got in them at the start of the life, you'll still be able to keep that same, maintain that same sort of chargeability over the life of the battery. Safety, you don't get the thermal runaway that, you know, clearly we've had some issues in the past with lithium-ion batteries. Sustainability is a really big one. All of the vanadium that goes into a vanadium redox flow battery is recyclable. So at the end of the physical life of a battery, you can take that electrolyte out and you can repurpose it. So it's a very simple process. I know Chris from RIU Metals was talking about the lithium battery recycling, which is quite a process. Here, basically, you just pump the electrolyte out of the battery and repurpose it. So fantastic solution for these long-term stationary storage. A lot of detail in there. Again, key takeaways for a vanadium redox flow battery. There are other flow batteries. There are other batteries in this space. But the key thing for vanadium redox flow batteries is that both sides of the battery, if you like, anode, cathode, but both cells are made of vanadium, and it's the actual oxidation states of vanadium that allow this battery to be a unique battery in the flow battery space. So a really big opportunity there. And I guess, you know, as I said before, you know, the fact that you can recycle the vanadium 100% at the end of the life, repurpose it, put it back into another battery, or take it out and put it back into steel. So it's a very, very versatile. And I guess just a bit of a takeaway on these batteries. They're quite a well-established technology. We've been deploying them now for a number of years, over 30 years. And just to let you know, we've currently got globally 146 of these vanadium redox flow batteries actually in operation or being developed for about 300 megawatt hours of storage. So they're actually out there being commercialised, and they're really hitting their straps at the moment and going to be driving a big chunk of the vanadium market. Into the projects themselves. So we've just recently renamed the area MURCHISON Technology Metals Project to capture both projects. It touched on the GABANINTHA Vanadium project, completed a DFS, long life. We see it from the study at 16 years of mine life, but that's going to extend well beyond 20 years. I guess, you know, 924 million US MPV, 34% IRR. That's at slightly below current vanadium prices, and as I say, we see the vanadium price going up in the next little while, so we're pretty comfortable with those sort of metrics. $4.04 a pound puts us, right, as I said earlier, right down the bottom end of the cost quartile for vanadium producers. So it's a great project. YARRABUBBA Iron Vanadium project, we're in the midst of a feasibility study at the moment, but we're looking at producing a really high-grade iron and vanadium product. So this is a magnetite product. So again, harking back to Eddie's talk about the Chinese paying significant premiums for high-grade magnetites in their steel making, this is the sort of product that's going to achieve those sorts of premiums once we get into the market there. So ESG is something that's important to all of us, and it's always been front of mind for us. I worked for quite some time in Africa, and then I came back to working in Western Australia, and really just applying the same principles to the communities in which we operate here in Australia. Focus on our environment and maintaining our environment, working with the communities, working with the traditional owners, and clearly around governance and safety. So a big part of our business, something we talk more about now, but it's always been front of mind for us as we've progressed through our business. I won't dwell on all of these items, but I guess, you know, that second bullet point, current revenue number at a $8.78 a pound vanadium pentoxide price, $5.7 billion over that initial 16 years of mine life. So quite a significant number when you look back at a $64 million market cap that we're sitting at the moment. $8.78, currently the market for vanadium is sitting around about the mid $9, and as I say, we're thinking that that's going to be heading north. A nice annual average EBITDA number there as well. One of the keys for the battery sector, like any battery mineral, is premium purity. We're looking just naturally being able to produce something that's 99.5% purity V2O5 product coming out of this operation. Putting that in perspective, a lot of the production coming out of China is sub 98%, so they've got to do a lot more work with that to get it into batteries, whereas we're right at the you know, that sort of level where you can go pretty well straight into the batteries. thrown in there, one of our characteristics of our ore body is this very shallow oxidation profile, and again, that leads into our processing. Why we're a low-cost producer is we've got this very shallow oxidation, which means that our processing can be, I guess, the scale of our front end of our process, our mining side can be significantly lower than some of our peers, and therefore we can get a really competitive cost. And I guess importantly for the progression of the development of this project, mining licences are granted. They were granted last year. We've had a long engagement with the EPA, and we're right at the final end of that point with the EPA at the moment, progressing our environmental approval. So they're all on track, hopefully by early next year. A lot of engagement, a lot of key partners, a lot of government engagement, a critical minerals project like ours, a significant investment into the regions of Western Australia. WA government's right behind it. The Northern Australian Infrastructure Facility is somewhere we're talking to about getting some funding support for that, and a bunch of really important vendors and partners in that list as well that are helping us move through to this development. And on the end there is some of the partners we've been talking to around offtake. Sinosteel is linked to our YARRABUBBA project. Some of the other names there are really in the battery space, in the electrolyte space, but we've also, as I said earlier, we've got some binding offtakes into the Chinese market. Running a little bit low on time, but just quickly on the YARRABUBBA project, it's just, if you see on the bottom right hand of that diagram, that little red square there, that's the YARRABUBBA tenement. So within that tenement, we've got about 28 million tonnes of resources of high-grade magnetite iron. So it's a nice head start when your resource grade's already at 38% and your high-grade component's already sitting almost at 50%. So we're looking at a 1.5 million tonne per annum production profile coming out of YARRABUBBA, high-grade, high purity with a vanadium credit, really good grades that it talks about there, really low deleterious elements, which enables us to access that premium pricing in the marketplace. Interestingly, we also, in our processing, it's a magnetic separation process to get our magnetite concentrate. Our non-magnetic tails contain titanium, so we get a really nice titanium byproduct from our waste stream. So we're a little bit behind in our test work on that. The star of the show there is the iron and vanadium, but the titanium work we've done so far is telling us we're going to get a really attractive product in what is a very, very tight titanium market at the moment. Probably a bit more technical detail in here, but that's a cross-section of the ore body, pretty consistent whether you're at GABANINTHA or at YARRABUBBA. A really solid, the pink zone's a really solid, thick, high-grade, massive magnetite zone. So you can see some of the widths and grades there, 20-odd metres at high 40% iron, so a really great place to be starting with. It means we've got a very simple flow sheet to deliver our high-purity product. A whole bunch of other very promising things here which make it mean that we can get go through the processing, keep those costs low, keep the simple flow sheet, differentiates us from the majority of magnetite projects around the world. We're not large scale, we don't need a lot of water, we don't need a lot of energy, we're doing a pretty simple upgrade to produce this high grade product. One of the key, I guess, leg ups we got from that is also we've completed a definitive feasibility study at GABANINTHA. We're going to be building all the infrastructure for YARRABUBBA within the GABANINTHA footprint. So all the work we've done in the DFS for GABANINTHA is supporting of the YARRABUBBA study. All the environmental approvals we've done for GABANINTHA are supportive of the YARRABUBBA development. So I guess it's a really nice, neat add-on, and it's going to be something that really enables us to stage the development and really, I guess, help with preserving our shareholders' capital. Part of the strategy that we're looking at, particularly at GABANINTHA as we move further in, is being part of the solution for the VRFB rollout into Australia, into WA. And part of that is producing electrolyte. So we've had some really good long engagement with some really key partners in producing electrolyte here in Western Australia. So we've got some engagement with some Japanese groups, some Chinese groups on really being able to do that. So it's a really good downstream value add process which will then enable the growth of a whole new industry in WA around the VRFB. Just quickly, Chrissy, on our timetable, we've done a lot of work on YARRABUBBA. Down the bottom there, we're talking about having mineral resource and ore reserve coming out, really in the next few months. Pilot test work progressing along for YARRABUBBA, and then delivering our DFS for YARRABUBBA by the end of the year. So we believe it's a compelling investment story. Leverage to these critical minerals in greening our economies. We're aimed at delivering on our projects, and I believe we've been doing that all the way through since inception. globally significant project, will be the single largest vanadium producer in the world once we get GABANINTHA up and running, stable operating environment, and I think we've got the team in place to deliver on that. And so please come and have a chat to us at the booth. Thank you very much.